Okay, I think we're going to get started. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming out here tonight for our Bobcats in Tucson event. We're going to be covering some of the findings of a study that went on the west side of the city for quite some time. And we're lucky to have Cheryl Mollohan here with us. She was one of the lead biologists of the study. And I'm Dr. Eric Aldrich. I teach English, mostly literature, here at Pima Community College, and we're really excited to have you in our big, beautiful new Azurite room. And so we're going to start, to get us started tonight, we're going to show you a few videos of Bobcats and give you a few minutes to look over the report. If you haven't got one of the reports, I think there's still some on the back table, so you can grab one of those and check it out. And after you have a few minutes to look through the report and watch some videos of Bobcats, of course, then we'll get to hear all about it from Cheryl. So we'll be back with you in a few minutes. Thank you so much for coming.
All right, thank you. Okay, so welcome. This is so wonderful to see so many people and a lot of faces that I recognize. So thank you so much for coming in and being here to celebrate what we learned about our Bobcats. So as Eric said, we're going to take a few minutes, mostly just because we wanted to give you time to read the report and be able to ask questions later. I will go over the high points, but we also are just trying to showcase, you know, what we've learned, but also still what's available. And so everything you'll see tonight, including the reports, are available on the website for download. So you can go there, the videos are there, and so we're going to take, as Eric said, we're going to take a few minutes. And so this first set of videos is actually, let's see, Eric, how do I? Okay, perfect, thank you. So this first compilation is just a series of our releases. So were held in the captive cage until they were completely recovered. Release sites were incredibly important, chosen with great care. So 18 different short video clips. They go very quickly, and it's just to kind of give you a little bit of perspective about what it was like if you weren't able to be out of capture. And I'm a Star Trekkie, so they all got sent away with live long and prosper. That was the most of them. So enjoy, watch, look at the materials, and just enjoy all the releases for a few minutes. We had a few backed out, we had a few, it was always an adventure. They were ready to go by then. Some were very quiet, some were very noisy, some banged around in the cage. Took them about, it was about a 3-hour process by the time we were finished with everything. Took them a while to go to sleep, and then we had about 50 minutes once they were immobilized.
Use your microphone, please.
Immobilized.
Use the microphone.
Use the microphone, sorry. I wasn't planning on narrating, but apparently I'm going to be narrating. So this was a different kind of cage. This is what was called a walk-through cage. And you can see these.
Okay, you can back out. Oh, guys,
They always face you.
go on. See who he's facing? Go on, buddy. It's okay. Go on. Live long and prosper. Out you go. Go on. Out you go. Yeah, thank you for that, DNA. Go in there. Go on. Go on, out you go. Okay. There's too many of us, isn't there? Okay, let's just back up a little bit, everybody. Thanks, guys. Go on. Nice kitty.
doesn't know the door is open. Oh, now I do.
You just, I know. Miss Kitty. Miss Kitty.
They're never aggressive, by the way.
Long and
They're
prosper.
not anybody, they just want to get away. Cages are custom built for this project by one of the biologists that we work with.
Nice. Okay. Okay. There you go.
This tells you some of the most important decisions. We never set a trap until we had a clear release, because obviously there are a lot of places that bobcats live in Tucson that it's not safe for them to come out
Okay.
and
Live long and
dash
prosper.
away. So,
Out you go. I guess. I want my cage back. Glad we moved the cage, huh?
Any amount of better.
Get him out of there. He's a ferocious beast. Gonna eat us alive. Oh, I know it. Oh, I know it. It's a terrible thing out there. Live long and prosper. Go on, little man.
That's right.
Okay. Let's go. Okay. Live long and prosper. Ready? Okay. Another way. Come on. Crap, he's going right over the
Well, we're carrying.
There we go.
They both went that way.
It's okay.
So I think this might be Wyatt Graber, for those who are here who are familiar with Wyatt. I think
Go
this
on.
might be Wyatt.
Okay. Go on.
Those of you who know him well, you
Back
can
up a
figure
little
this
bit.
out. Well, maybe not.
Okay. Off you go. Off you go. Yes, that's the one. You're safe. Come on. You're safe. It's okay. Go on, you're okay. Off you go. Off you go.
No worries. You can just walk in front of it.
Okay. Stop this here. And so I want to introduce to you another video. So this was very special for us. This is called Bringing Up Bobcats. We worked with a STEM specialist from Sunrise Drive Elementary School, and she got a grant to develop a 6-week 5th grade unit for her school district, for her school and her school district, using the data from Bobcats in Tucson. Yeah, which is very exciting. The kids are mapping, and it's just amazing. They use 6 different pairs of our Bobcats. Well, she had a very precocial 5th grader who got really interested, and he utilized video of our Bobcat Avery, who we'll talk about as we go along, utilized video and put together a video narrated a video for this unit. And we just felt like it was such a neat thing that we wanted, first of all, to let you see the videos of Avery, but also to see, to listen to Zinji. So we'll do this and then we'll get started.
Bringing Up Bobcats. Agua is a suburban neighborhood. Natural vegetation has been preserved, and there's a large wash beneath. Avery is a bobcat whose home range includes Agua. The data from a radio collar shows that she spends a lot of time in the neighborhood. In 2023, she chose a rooftop for her natal den. For the first weeks of their lives, her kittens stayed there while she went out to hunt. Bobcats are patient hunters who wait motionless for the right moment to pounce on their prey. Then, a doorbell camera filmed her moving the kittens to a nearby yard. Bobcats changed their den sites for safety, cleanliness, and access to prey. The yard Avery chose has high protective walls, planting beds, water, features for climbing, and hiding places. The owners were gracious hosts, keeping the water dish filled and staying out of sight. Having a safe hiding place is important because the mother must leave them to hunt. A mother with 3 kittens needs food for herself to be able to nurse them. Even so, she loses a lot of weight. When the mother comes back, the kittens can come out. At first, the kittens are timid. They stay close for nursing and grooming. Mother needs sleep, but she has to be vigilant. The kittens instinctively follow her. They play under her watchful eyes. But they must stay put when she leaves them. Their play includes behaviors important to survival. In the desert, in the dark, they can follow her tail. Like human children, they invent their own games. They wrestle with each other. They climb anything in sight. And are active day and night. It's time for the kittens to learn to hunt. The kittens are curious about the prey the mother brings back. She buries prey for the kittens to find. The kitten who finds it has a first lesson in hunting. What to do with it comes later. The buried prey attracts another hunter. A coyote jumps the high wall to investigate. The yard is no longer safe and Avery prepares the kittens to leave. She will move frequently to find other places to keep them safe. While they grow. Then, between 7 to 12 months of age, they, like this kitten, will leave her care and disperse to establish home ranges of their own.
What an amazing thing. Senji was Japanese American and he has since gone back to Japan. So the person who is responsible for all those videos is here tonight. This is very much about gratitude for us tonight. Hans, would you stand, please? Quickly? Hans has the best Bobcat mojo in Tucson. Because not only did Avery spend 2023 with Hans, her collar came off very near his house in June of 2023, part of when this video was happening or soon after. And 2024 hasn't had a collar on for a year. We were still able to follow her. I got a phone call from Hans and he said, "Guess who's in the backyard?" More kittens. She raised 7 kittens in the 3 years that we were able to follow her. She was a remarkable mother. Thank you, Hans, very much. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to Gail Sherman. She is another member of our BIT team, and she's going to talk a little bit about Carrie Baldwin, our friend that we lost during the study.
So will this, can you hear me?
No.
Is this on?
Here again. You want just here? Just take this.
Yeah, well, I need my hands.
Oh, you want your
I need
hands.
my hands for some of this.
Okay.
I can turn the mic on.
Here you go.
So, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, okay. Carrie, who was one of the 4 people on the capture and collaring team, and one of the 3 biologists, I'm the only non-biologist who was on that team. And so how I met Carrie is actually part of the story. So I live on Star Pass, anybody who plays golf, Coyote 3, and I have been taking photographs of bobcats with my big camera for about 18 years, and I'd heard about the study, and I was asked to send my photos to the team. So I sent my photos to the team, and they looked at them, and they asked me to come on the next capture, which happened to be the next day. And so I went there, and I took pictures of the whole capture, and that, I think that slideshow is actually on our website also, which is called Photos and Videos, but I'm going to change it to media because I have other things going up there. And thank you. I was a kindergarten teacher, so I'm good with show and tell. So what I didn't know was during that time, Carrie Googled me. Now I Google a lot of people, but I never thought anybody would Google me. All right, but he discovered that I had a website on the GoDaddy platform. And they had a person who'd set up the website for BIT, and it was on GoDaddy, and that person had left, and no one else on the team knew anything about working on a platform. So within about 2 days, I am now the webmaster and the photographer. And I changed from my really big camera to the new iPhone Pro Max, which had just come out with the 3 cameras, because when I lean over the Bobcat, I couldn't have this big camera swinging down. So the rest of the story about Carrie is she had a wonderful sense of humor. And during the first capture year, we were on the golf course a lot. And so Carrie made this sign for my house, and this is what my house was called. The Bobcat Research Field Station, maintained by Stephen Gale Sherman, best known for clean toilets, friendly coffee and snack service, patio conference area, tolerating unannounced visits, Google security alerts, free parking, and a resident bobcat population. And on our 2 vehicles, we used two big pickup trucks. Cheryl and I were in one, and the guys were on the other one. And we would go around and we would check our traps every morning at the beginning of dawn. And one day, I got an email or a text from someone asking me if that was the Bobcat rescue vehicle that was parked outside her house. And so we talked about this, and Carrie had this great idea, so this is what he did. He got a Ghostbusters truck, and he outfitted it for Bobcats in Tucson. So our logo there is on the hood of the car. The license plate is Lynx 1. Cheryl is the driver. I'm running shotgun. On the top is our website, so if you go over in a helicopter, you and then it said, who are you gonna call? Bobcat Busters. So he made this for us, but that wasn't all. Woo, 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 woo. Car. And this was just typical of Carrie, and we miss him dearly. He did finish his portion of the report just before he passed, so we were very lucky. Okay. Oh, wait, I have one more thing. You asked me to say this, and I forgot. So he gave us other presents, and we all have a mug that has the quote about Bobcats that you might think I'm listening to you, but I'm really thinking about Bobcats. He gave us a mug last Christmas, and that was the saying which was on the mug. So be sure to take one of those when you leave.
Thank you, Cal.
All right, so, so in 2020, myself and 4 other retired game and fish biologists got a grant from the Arizona Game and Fish Department. It was $34,000, which was enough to buy our first few collars and our traps. And over the next 4 years, we received donations, probably from some of you in this room, from $15 to $10,000. And we all worked as volunteers, and we were, really didn't raise, people just donated about 2.5 times as much as we received from the original grant. Well, one of the things I'm most proud of. This study was really and truly a community effort, and it's a different model for my profession, but it has been an incredible experience. We're really glad Eric's here. By the way, oh, there it went. It's the magic touch. Okay. All right, so I'm Cheryl Mollohan. I was the lead investigator on Bobcats in Tucson, but as I mentioned, there were 5 of us, game and fish people, who started this. Our artwork was donated by Rick Wheeler, an amazing Tucson artist. I love that piece of art. It's so beautiful. So our research team, our original initial team, myself, Gary Baldwin, that Gail just talked about, Al LeCount, Ron built our cages and taught us how to catch bobcats. Dave Brown, another person that we lost along the way. Is Robert Davis here? I don't think Robert's here. He was our GIS person, of course, Gil, you know already. And we actually had 4 DVMs over the course of the study. Dr. Erica Johnson was the co-owner of the Arizona Exotic Animal Veterinary Hospital. And I don't think Lacey or Greg, either of our vets here tonight. Okay, so every single bobcat capture, we had a DVM attending, which was a huge safety net for us. We had about 50 minutes to handle the bobcats and do everything that we needed to do. And having the vets there, they were completely volunteers like the rest of us, was just a huge benefit for us. And we're very grateful for that. It was a major commitment on their part to be available every single morning when we were trapping over the course of 4 years. So it was a big commitment. We did have collaboration with the University of Arizona, 3 different parts of the study, 3 different graduate students. I don't believe Natalie's here tonight, or Allie, Margaret, or Jesse. No, okay. But they provided a tremendous amount of additional support, and we were able to help 2 of them get their doctorates along the way, and Margaret's still working on her master's. Okay, so this was truly a community effort, and I know many of you are here. So as I call your name, please stand up. I don't believe Jennifer and Karen are here. John and Katie? Thank you. And if you would just stay up, we'd appreciate it. Many of you are listed here. Many of you aren't. If you see your name here, please stand up. If you can, it's okay just to raise your hand too, but please stand up. Yes, and Eric is, by the way, I missed Eric in my list. Eric was one of our houses that we trapped at. How many people we trapped at your house? Yeah, Chris, yes, thank you so much. That was such a wonderful thing. I appreciate that so much. If you sent in a report, please stand up. Did you send in a bobcat report? Did you take the survey? If you took the survey, please stand up. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so everyone, please give yourselves and everyone else a hand. It's really one of the things we're most proud of. It got bigger than we could have ever imagined. Thank you so much. This report is dedicated to both the 2 and 4 elected residents of Tucson, and to the 2 team members and friends we lost. Dave Brown was another of our biologists, and of course Gail already talked about Carrie. And this little female was not a radio female, but she was by far my favorite bobcat in the study. And I'll talk about her a little bit more later on, but this picture is my favorite picture. This was her first kitten, and she really struggled to raise him, but she raised him, so it was very cool. Okay, so our objectives, we had a lot of them, but there were 3 overarching objectives. We really started out wanting to help this Tucson bobcat population and to develop strategies that would reduce the risk of conflict. One of the things we found out was it's amazing how little conflict there is, but there is indeed conflict. And I know if you followed the study, you've heard about some of the mortalities that we heard, that we had. So as I go along, I'll show you some of the materials that we've developed. I love this statement because bobcats as watchable wildlife is almost an oxymoron. I mean, okay, so how many people have seen a bobcat here in Tucson? Raise your hand. I love this. Okay, now put your hands down. How many people have seen a bobcat in the wild? Oh, very good. Yeah, okay. They are not easy to see. They're so incredibly good at being camouflaged. I always tell people say, I never see bobcats. And I say, bobcats see you. They just choose to not be seen. And that's one of the differences of living here in Tucson. And I just think it's remarkable what can happen here. And then the other part of that was just to add to the knowledge of urban bobcats. There has not been a lot of work done on urban bobcat populations, and Tucson is very unique in the level of integration that we have. Most populations live around the edges of the city, okay? So we found, of course, here that our bobcats live over most, if not all, of Tucson. We're still gathering that data, by the way. So the first thing we did, since 2 of our 3 objectives had to do with people, was we asked people to take a survey online. It just took 7 or 8 minutes, and it was very basic stuff. Just how do you feel about this? What are your concerns, if you have any? And just to try to get a feel for where people were struggling and where things were good. And it was overwhelmingly positive. About 90% of the comments were favorable. The negative comments are almost entirely focused on fear. It was fear. Some people fear for themselves, they fear for their children, but they most certainly fear for their pets and domestic livestock, but it's really chickens. And we'll talk about chickens as we go along. Bobcats and chickens, it's like you put a big red light in the sky that says, chickens here for the taking. So we'll talk about that as we go along. So you'll see all the way through the program, everything I put it up is on the website, and you can download it from the website. But we did try to first listen to people and have the people of Tucson tell us where their concerns were. Then we listened to the Bobcats, and we tried to put those 2 things together, okay? So we tried to take what we learned, what the Bobcats taught us, and put that together with where we saw concerns or issues. The other thing we did was we asked people to send in Bobcat sightings to our website. This was remarkable. I still get these every day, okay? This part of the study is active and will remain so, because I still hear from people every single day, which is amazing. And these are the results. I just am amazed by this. And this statement, this was actually Carrie's statement about bobcats have almost seamlessly adapted to living across much of greater Tucson with relatively little conflict. Now, one of the reasons that we have kept this active is that we know, and I'm sure some of you know, that these blank spots aren't void of bobcats, they're just void of people sending in sightings. So we're still trying to encourage people to send us in sightings. One of the most remarkable things, and actually Alice is here tonight, the person who keyed us into this to start with, you see those darkest areas. So those are between 1,000 and 1,500 structures per square kilometer. That is super dense human habitat. And we have bobcats living there. So this is the Arizona Inn, Grant and Campbell, remarkable, where we had bobcats. The other reason that we think this will fill in eventually is you see this little cluster of locations over here. Well, all of this habitat is the same. And that little cluster of locations tells us it's a reporting issue because that's Carrie's neighborhood. And so Carrie was constantly encouraging people to send in sightings. And so we have a little cluster over there. So stay tuned on that. As I mentioned already, we did collect information from across the greater Tucson, but we had a capture area, which was our focal point on the west side. And I know many of you actually lived in this particular capture area. We picked it for a number of reasons. One of those, most important, was it really had all of the habitats, with the exception of that densest human population. It had a variety of levels of urbanization. It backed up to Tucson Mountain Park and Saguaro National Park, which is as beautiful of pristine snow desert as there is anywhere. And it also had, well, actually a couple golf courses, but Gail mentioned that she's on Star Pass Golf Course, and we did capture bobcats on Star Pass Golf Course. So we picked the area pretty specifically. We realized a couple years in that we had missed an important habitat. The bobcat showed us this, and that was the Santa Cruz River drainage. So there are really two types of habitat in the river drainage. One of those, if you're in the more southern, what we call the heritage corridor, is only recently begun to have to flow again. Okay, so those areas of high quality effluent that's being released now, and what's happening is the riparian vegetation is coming back, and fish are coming back, birds are coming back, insects are coming back, bobcats coming back as well. We also realized if you go to the north in the Santa Cruz, where there has been water flowing for several years, that there's well-developed riparian vegetation there. And we wanted to support the efforts of the Sonora Institute. There's a huge effort right now in Tucson to turn this into a national urban wildlife refuge. And we wanted to support that. So we increased our study area, added a little corner, and the last year that we were trapping, we did catch some bobcats in the river drainage, and we actually learned a lot. They use their habitat much differently than the rest of our bobcats. So the other thing that we looked at was we wanted to look at the topography. So if you look at this, you notice as you go from west to east, the topography gets less, okay? And bobcats, when you talk about wildlands habitat for bobcats, you're talking about the steepest, highest, densest, rockiest, most rugged areas you can find. All right, so we had those, and they were available to these bobcats that we caught on the west side. But as you go farther east, notice the topography decreases. So they didn't have available to them those high rugged areas, and human habitation increases. So it was those two variables that we wanted to look at. So we spent a lot of time picking our study site. Okay, so we captured bobcats, starting at the park, starting at Tucson Mountain Park, in that high quality habitat, and then slowly moved east. We fitted them with satellite radio collars. This was the biggest expense in our study. Each radio collar cost $2,600, and we had 25. So again, that was all of you. That was the people of Tucson who supported us. These cages, I mentioned Ron Day, who's another biologist on the study, built these cages specifically for bobcat capture, specifically for research. They were very safe, and they were incredibly effective. So one of the fun things about doing this was, and one of my favorite sayings, I'm a cat person anyway, is a cat is a cat is a cat. So how do you catch a bobcat? Well, kind of the same way you catch any cat. You just put enough stuff out there that something catches his attention and he can't stand it. He has to go look. And so these rabbits were just silly. We actually caught 6 bobcats on those stuffed bunnies, which was really funny. That first slide I showed of the female standing in the trap, that was Bobcat Bunny. She got caught on the rabbit, so she was the first one. But there's a lot of different things here. You can see, I don't know if they have a light here or not, but you can see, of course, the stuffed rabbit. There is a piece of a cottontail roadkill. We picked cottontails up all year round that we found on the road. There's a little furry black mouse back there that is a domestic cat toy. Go figure. And then also a whole series of scents. So these are commercial lures that smell like things bobcats like, I guess, or smell like bobcats. But it works really, really well. So, back up here. So what happens here is there's a treadle right here. And these sticks are to encourage them to step over. And when they step over, they step on that treadle and it drops the door. Works very well. We caught some bobcats several times. Some you never catch again, others you don't want to catch them and you still catch them again. So if all goes well, when you come in the morning, here's what you find. He is not happy with research at this exact moment in time. This was Bobcat Dave. I still think he was the most beautiful bobcat that we caught. We caught him on the Star Pass golf course. So here are two of our DVMs. This was Dr. Lacey Klein and Dr. Erica Johnson. And so what we would do is Eric and I would go down and we would look at the bobcat and I would estimate a weight. And then we use 3 different drugs that work together, drugs that are used every day by veterinarians on domestic cats, but 3 different drugs. And then if all went well, usually took 5 to 10 minutes for them to go to sleep. Once they were asleep, we had about 50 minutes. It was all hands on deck. Everybody had a job and everybody was working very quickly and very efficiently to gather the information that we needed. Each collar was fit individually. This thing that you see on the top, that's actually what Oak turns on and shoots a beam up, catches a satellite, and takes a GPS location. Remarkable collars. We collected a lot of information. I feel very strongly if we're going to put them through getting caught, which is not a good experience for them. It's like you going to the doctor, never fun. We'll get as much information as we can. And so we did a lot of other places. I mentioned the U of A students that we collaborated with. We also collaborated with other researchers. So when we got our hands on them, we took a lot of biological samples. This is Erica's taking blood here. This is Dr. Steve Sherman, who's Gail's husband. So we ended up catching 56. I still can't believe we caught 56 different bobcats, truthfully. 68 times. Some we tried to recapture, some we did not, over a 4-year period. 24 adult females, and we radio collared 23. The only reason we did not radio collar the other female, and she lives right there in that spot that's, I can't read it from here, but you see where, oh, it says Tucson Mountains. She lived right there. And we were down to our last caller for that year, and we had already caught a female that morning. And so Gil and turned her loose. It was not easy, but we did. So 23 radioed adult females, 20 adult males. We turned 6 loose. Not an easy thing to do when you have a bobcat in a cage. But we learned so much more from our females. And the reality is, if you're going to have a successful population, you have to have successful reproduction. And that comes back to the females. The males don't help with the kittens at all. The females raise the kittens entirely on their own. And so consequently, we always tried to get as many females as we could, and we turned some males loose. We did have some subadult males. So a subadult, they're born, I'll talk about this in a little bit more detail, but they're born mostly in April. And then once they leave their mothers, anywhere from 8 to 10 months later, at that one time we consider them subadults. So we had 4 subadult males who were born on the study area. They hadn't dispersed yet. Usually the males disperse and the females do not. We did radio collar 1, and that was one of Avery's kittens, one of Avery's 2022 kittens. We put a radio collar on, Tippy, Bobcat Tippy. And then we had 7 that were too small to radio, so 6 kittens, 1 subadult that we didn't try to sex in that situation. We just turned them loose. So one of the things that was most important that we found was that the radio collared females did not share with other females that they were not related to. And so you can see, and I think this might be the most important visual that we have from the study, because it's very easy to show people why, if there's an issue with a female, you can't move her. You can't just take her and put her someplace else and pat yourself on the back and think everything's gonna be fine. If you move her someplace else, you're gonna put her in someone else's home range, and there's gonna be conflict, and someone will lose. She'll either try to come back, or she won't survive. And so we use this diagram a lot when someone says, I got this bobcat, come get it, move it, take it someplace. There is no someplace. We're blessed here in Tucson and in the surrounding areas. So this is the study area, but this map, if you were able to capture all the bobcats, it would look the same. So it was very important. So our home ranges are fairly small. Females averaged 3 square miles in round numbers. The smallest 1.35, the largest 8.2 square miles. Bobcat Nala, and this is Nala, who lived in the Santa Cruz River, had the largest home range. Bobcat Minnie, and this is Minnie here down in the corner, was on Star Pass Golf Course, and she had the smallest home range. There's a couple of other things here that are interesting. Bobcat Danielle, who's the yellow, was the only female we had who shifted her home range over the course of the study. She started on the west and slowly shifted to the east. The other thing that's important here is if you look at this home range, you notice that the blue, that's Bobcat Sylvia, but underneath that is red, and that's Bobcat Shannon, and that's a mother and daughter who shared a home range. This was new information in the bobcat world. It had been hinted at by some other studies, but no one had seen what we saw, so that was very cool. And in fact, this led to our very first scientific publication from the study results. This was Dr. Natalie Payne, now Dr. Payne, did our kinship analysis, and this just got published. There will be many more of these, but this was our first. We actually had 5 pairs of mother-daughters who shared home ranges, and there were likely more. We did not trap every one of our female home ranges a second time. The only reason we found out was we were trying to capture Bobcat Margaret, who lived up on Tumamoc. We were trying to capture her again to change her radio collar. We caught her in the first year. We tried to catch her again. We caught another female in her home range, and lo and behold, that ended up being her daughter. And we had 5 of those, so it was very cool. And then 2, Beverly, Bobcat Beverly, shared her home range with her daughter Sadie, but then she also had Lisa and Bobby Joe were her daughters, and they lived in adjacent home ranges. Okay, so the conventional wisdom on bobcats is they are solitary. Once the kittens are gone, they do not maintain relationships. This really shows that they do in fact maintain relationships, and they definitely have contact with other bobcats. So the male home ranges are larger. Males typically overlap with a couple of females. They also overlap with each other much more. Okay, so they do not have as, their home ranges are not as unique to just them as they are with the females. So again, quite a bit of range of sizes of home ranges. Bobcat Braden, he was our largest male, 27.15 pounds. We did catch Braden twice and changed his radio collar. He had the largest home range at 13.67 miles. And he was our player. He had 7 different females in his home range. Yeah, no kidding. But the other thing along with that that's so amazing about Braden is if you look from west to east, so those blue squares that are underneath the female home ranges, those are all Braden's locations. And Braden utilized every single type of habitat we had on our study area. Everything from pristine Tucson Mountain Park all the way down to the Santa Cruz River. So he was the guy from that standpoint. Yeah. The smallest home range was Jonathan. I forgot to mention Minnie, who was on the Star Pass Golf Course. Jonathan, who's again down here in kind of that lower right-hand corner, also lived on the Star Pass Golf Course. So our 2 smallest home ranges were golf course which is really interesting. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and I'll talk a little bit about that in the publication. But there were many things that make that very, very good bobcat habitat. So overall, home ranges were relatively small. I mentioned already the smallest were on the golf course. One of the things that was interesting to me, we have always thought of the size of a home range as an indicator of quality of habitat. And so we had these tiny little home ranges on the golf course, but some of our most urbanized females, Bobcat Avery, and Bobcat Carrie, who both lived right along Silver Bell and lived on the east side, also had really small home ranges. So what that tells us is, not only is Tucson Mountain Park with pristine Sonoran Desert good bobcat habitat, but so are urbanized areas of Tucson. It was remarkable how adept they were at taking advantage of what was available to them. So one of the things we did is, in order to be able to say, well, we think they select for something or choose something, you have to have something to compare it to. So we had about 50,000 bobcat locations. So we drew a circle around our bobcat locations and had the computer generate 50,000 random locations. And then we can statistically make some comparisons. And hopefully what comes out of that is it tells you what they're choosing or what they're selecting for. So we know it's not just a random chance that they're there. And the two things that I thought were most interesting about this was that they were significantly closer to buildings. I would have predicted that they would be significantly closer to washes because they use them to travel with, but they selected areas near buildings. And you think, why would they do that? We'll talk about that in a minute. And in fact, building densities were significantly higher at bobcat locations than at random locations. Random locations significantly closer to major roads and parks and recreation areas. So those are the things that we can make the jump to say that bobcats avoided major roads and avoided some parks and recreation areas. And I think that's because they all got grouped together in the analysis. So if it was a baseball diamond, it got grouped together with a green space park. It wasn't that they didn't use the green space parks. It was just the way the analysis was done. This just shows you, this was Bobcat Bobby Joe, who lives over towards Star Pass. And you can see all of those pink locations are her locations. And you can see how she used that wash to travel across Greasewood Park. So washes are very important, and I truly believe one of the reasons we have so many bobcats in Tucson is because we have protected our washes and travelways. I think that's very important for them. Of everything we learned, I think this is my favorite part. So we look at this and we think, there's a bob. Katie's here, by the way, one of our photographers. She's walking on a wall, laying on a ledge. This is Avery, and this is Avery. She had her kittens on the roof and kept them there for 6 weeks in 2022 before going to Chris Wesselman's house. Chris is here and he's responsible for many of our wonderful photos that you'll see. But we look at this and we see human structures. Bobcats don't look at it that way. This is simply where they live. So it doesn't matter to them if it's a tree or a wall or a roof. It serves the same purpose, right? They're looking for shelter. They're looking to be able to travel through their areas. They always have their feet off the ground if they have that choice. So it is a paradigm shift for us to make, to say, oh, wait a second, they don't care if it's a human structure. It's simply where they live. It's simply part of their home range and part of their environment. So I always tell people, think of a house as a pile of rocks that people live in. They just don't make that jump like we do. One of the other things, I know, it's a wonderful picture. One of the other things we learned that they showed us, and I love this part, was, if you're a kitten or you're a youngster, you can be happy just about anywhere. The kittens taught us to play hard, find your play where you can take it, and the very same thing with your naps. I love this. And again, this is Avery, and you can see it's actually after her collar had come off that we were able to get keyed in that she was in this house with her kittens for a few days. And the little boy who lived here was just ecstatic that Avery's kittens were using his trampoline. So again, it's a jump for us to make. It wasn't a jump for the Bobcats at all. And of course, everybody deserves good lawn furniture. Very important. This female was not a radioed female. This person, Erin, contacted me very early in the study. She came back to his house every year. 1 year, she brought 2 daughters with her. They raised 7 kittens together in this backyard. Yeah, also something that's never been reported in Bobcat literature. Really remarkable. Craig is here tonight, and Greg sent me this picture. So urban bobcats in many cases were likely born into an urban environment. It's all they've ever known. Human structures are all they have known. They are simply being bobcats and blooming where they're planted. A good message for all of us. They don't make the distinction between natural and human-made. It is their home, and that's such an important thing for us to remember. It's our home too, but it's equally their home. So I have to tell you about this picture. Greg started sending me those pictures, and I knew this female was there, so we specifically were trying to catch her. We ended up catching the little female, the top left female was Bobcat Emma Claire, and we caught her as a sub-adult. She wasn't quite a year old. And then a few months later, we were able to catch Carrie. We caught him in the same place. When we caught Emma Claire, when she was in the cage waking up, I left a person there. We caught 2 bobcats that day. And when I came back, he said, well, there was another bobcat here laying outside the cage. It was the mom. It was Carrie. When we caught the mom, Emma Claire laid outside the cage while we were recovering. Yeah, it was really, really interesting. But they taught us a lot. Carrie lived in the most urbanized home range, right up against Silver Bell. Greg was the only person who got pictures of Carrie. Even though she lived in an incredibly dense home range, she raised her kittens in alleys. She did not spend a lot of time in backyards, but she did visit Greg. So thanks, Greg. We learned a lot from her. So what is the attraction, other than the obvious structural things? The other piece of that is that, of course, you're in a desert and water is very important. So they certainly utilize water sources. Let's see if I can use that. Oh, good. Okay. The other thing that they do is hunted bird feeders. So if you're putting bird feeders out and you're putting water out, those are both things that benefit bobcats, and our bobcats likely eat more birds than wildlands bobcats do because of that. This is Bobcat Minnie, and she's hunting at a bird feeder. And then this was one of Avery's kittens, and Chris Wesselman's in the back, and Chris saw Avery jump up on the wall, hang by her elbows, and grab that dove, and then bring it down and give it to the kitten. So this was his first, yeah, amazing. We were so lucky that we had Avery because she taught us so much. Oh, here we go. So, is Diane here by chance? No. So Diane sent me these videos all the time. This was at Bobcat Central, and this is Bobcat Danielle. I don't know who her friend is. She met someone with her that day. So water and bird feeders are both important. So our conclusion, much of greater Tucson with low to medium building densities, 10 to 500 buildings per square kilometer, native vegetation, intact washes, offers excellent bobcat habitat. backyard water sources and bird feeders attract prey like ground feeding doves, creating prime hunting spots. Is David here? David, okay, so this is David Shipman, and this is Bobcat Daphne, who lives on the Star Pass Golf Course. And David has sent us and captured for us the most remarkable photographs. I truly look forward to seeing, anytime Gail forwards me an email, I know I'm looking for. Same thing, she jumped up and was able to grab the stuff. Daphne has not had her collar for a year or so, but she's still front and center in this neighborhood. We see her all the time. She raised her kitten this year. So a bobcat is a bobcat is a bobcat. Results and conclusions from this study apply equally to all of these bobcats that live on the north side and the east side of Tucson. And I truly believe on the south side. It's just simply not filled in yet. So if you know people who live on the south side who have bobcats, please ask them to send in the reports. You know, a lot of our press focused on our mortalities. We had 12 over the course of the study, so 32%. They were all human related. There were no natural mortalities. 2 directly related to attempted predation on chickens, unfortunately. Both of them were shot and killed. 3 other illegal kills. Bobcat Sadie was one of those, and I know most people are aware of Sadie's story. If not, you can look on the website. 2 of those, we don't know. They were simply killed in a way that made us believe that they were illegal kills. Well, there was no legal pathway. And then the other side of that was vehicle strikes, road mortality, and I'll talk about roads in a minute. So it was about a 50-50 split. We had one male who died shortly after we handled him. Our vets did an autopsy, an necropsy, which is like an autopsy. We were never able to find any reason that he died. So it was possibly something that we couldn't see that was study related. And then one that was likely a vehicle strike, but we couldn't 100% say. So one of the things that was interesting was that over the course of the study, mortality levels decreased as the study went on. In year 1, and this was scary, 64% of our radio bobcats got killed in the first year of the study. I was thinking all I was going to be doing was picking up dead bobcats. And so 6 mortalities in the first year, and a 64% mortality rate. So the way to think of this is in a 365-day period of how many bobcats you had radioed, in that 365 days, 36% survived and 64% did not. So that is not sustainable. If this was the norm, we would not have a sustainable bobcat population. The second year, the mortality went down. It was about the same the third year. So now we're talking about a survival rate of 85% of our bobcats, or 86% are surviving. And that's very doable and very encouraging for us. So vehicle strikes occurred in each year of the study, but they did decrease as the study progressed. Direct human causes decreased as the study progressed to 0 in the third year. They did not have any human-caused mortalities. Even though the number of radio-colored bobcats increased over the course of the study, the number of mortalities decreased. And we really hope this was due to the study raising awareness, helping people find solutions that didn't involve killing a bobcat, and just getting people to pay attention to the fact that they lived with bobcats. We would like to believe that was the case. This is amazing. On average, all of our bobcats cross the road 7 times in a day. Now, that's everything. A road in Tucson can be everything from a dirt path to a 6-lane highway, right? So there was some variation. Major roads, such as Silver Bell, were avoided. They did not cross major roads if they had a choice. Okay, so if there was a way around, they took it. Minor roads, a little bit of avoidance, but it wasn't statistically significant. Okay, so some slight avoidance of minor roads. Interestingly enough, they did not utilize overpasses, underpasses, culverts, which we were a little surprised by. They do utilize, the wildlife crossing overpass. Bobcats do utilize that. Our radio cats work there, but they do utilize that. But they don't use things like culverts or go under underpasses or overpasses. I-10 was a barrier, by the way. We only had one male who dipped under I-10, Bobcat Charlie, who lived in the Santa Cruz River drainage, dipped under I-10 twice, just to the other side, and then came right back. So our bobcat population is split. Okay, so there are east side bobcats, west side bobcats. So this is just a roadstead. This was Bobcat Hal. He was radio called for about 10 months. And so all of the red lines are location connections from one location to the next. And so it might have been 2 hours apart, it might have been 12 hours apart. And then all of the yellow dots are places where he crossed roads. So you can see that day in, day out, he dealt with roads all the time. 1,983 road crossings in 10 months. He lived along Camino de Este. He crossed Camino de Este 133 times. He successfully crossed Ironwood Road 75 times. He got killed on the 76th time, so we did lose him. And 14 times along Speedway. So they're very adept at crossing, but nonetheless, it's a huge concern. So again, I mentioned early on that we asked people and tried to key in on what people were worried about, and the conventional wisdom, the urban myth is that bobcats eat dogs, bobcats eat cats, bobcats eat chickens, goats, turkeys, and so that was a major part of our questions. These are mine, by the way. This was my poodle puppy Summer and Pioho cat. So here's what we found out, and this was Allie Burnett, who was another graduate student we worked with. Rabbits made up 85% plus or minus 10 of the diet. This is typical food habits for wildland bobcat populations. Okay, so it was interesting to me how similar ours were. Rabbits and all members of this family are very closely tied together. Birds, I think primarily mourning doves, but also quail, made up 15% plus or minus 10%. Cats, chickens, dogs, rodents, less than 2% of the diet. So even though it's very high profile when something happened, it was not the norm. It wasn't what happened every day. Over the course of, probably 2,000 contacts that I had with people getting a hold of us to report things, I had 2 reports of cats, of bobcats killing cats in people's backyards. No reports of dogs, no first-hand report of dogs. They avoid dogs if they can. And then rodents, again, I think they take in rodents whenever they can. Chickens, of course, we did lose bobcats to predation on chickens. And I always, someone sent me this picture right off the bat. There's a mother, and she had 2 big kittens with her. You can see one kitten over here sniffing around. And the lady got a hold of me, and she said they were there all day. She went out, yelled at them, beat some pants. They left for a while, went, took a nap, came back. They did not get in. So this was, luckily, they did not get in. They were not successful. But they were sure interested. We did lose 2 of our big guys. Bobcat Dave got shot down in the Barrio off of Tumamoc at a house where there were free-ranging chickens. And Bobcat Jonathan was shot over by Star Pass, also came into a backyard. The chickens were out free-ranging, and he was shot. So we lost these 2 guys to attempting to catch chickens. And you know, all I can say about chickens, I had chickens for probably 25 years as an adult. I'll never have them again because they are literally magnets for bobcats, and not just bobcats, you know, raccoons and coyotes, all things that prey on these big, nice smelling, slow moving birds. And if they just happen to be out in a yard where you can run one down, that makes it even better. And so we really have tried to work a lot with people about containing our chickens, but the bottom line is, if you let them out, even if you're out there with them, if you let them out, you're at risk for bobcats to come in and catch them. Again, they simply cannot discern what we consider to be property. We just put these wonderful, yummy birds in the middle of their path, and they're going to do what any self-respecting bobcat's going to do. These guys are no different than any bobcats anywhere. So I really encourage people to give some thought to your chickens, or at the very least, keep them contained all the time. Because these guys, it was hard to have to go pick up dead bobcats because they were stalking someone's chickens. So we did develop a handout. We have a series of handouts. They're all on the website, downloadable, to provide to Arizona Game and Fish, but also for ourselves. So when someone gets a hold of me now, I have materials I can send them. We did site visits. We went out and talked to people, met with people whenever we could, to encourage people to do a better job of keeping their bobcats contained. So, you know, all of us so enjoyed the females and kittens. On the left is Bobcat Daphne and her kitten, and on the right is Bobcat Luna. And I think this was Luna's very first kitten. She was a young female. So we found that there's a very specific time. There's about a 5-week period where most of the births occur. The conventional wisdom with bobcats, and it's true, is they can have kittens any time of the year. And the reason is because they lose so many kittens that from an evolutionary standpoint, they have evolved a strategy that if she has her kittens, you know, they're completely vulnerable to anything. She hides them, that's her only defense. She has to be gone, hunting. So she hides the kittens, but they lose a lot of kittens very early on. And what happens if she loses a litter, within about 10 days, she'll come back into estrus and she'll breed again, and she'll have another litter, and she'll try again. And they will keep trying until they raise a litter of kittens. So that's why you can see bobcat kittens at this time of year, but most of them are born in about, you can see April is really what I think of as the birth time. Which, by the way, if you backdate right now, I always tell people Valentine's Day is the height of the breeding season. Go figure. Their gestation is just about like house cats. They share many things in common with house cats. Cats are cats. So this was fun. At least 28 kittens survived to leave the den with their mother. So again, what I tell people, when you look at that map of all of those puzzle pieces, you say, wow, where did those kittens go? Well, we found out that in fact the daughters likely stay with the mothers. The males disperse. We did not find any sons in home ranges. We did find daughters. And we had Bobcat Tippy, who was Avery's 2022 kitten that we put a radio collar on. He hung around in her home range until she had another litter of kittens. And he was 14 months by then. And I had 2 different people. So if you were one of those people who sent stuff in, never doubt how important the information was, because I had 2 people get a hold of me and say, I saw a big bobcat with a radio collar and a little bobcat with a radio collar, and they were snarling and snapping at each other. Well, it was right outside the house where Avery's 2023 kittens were born. So I think she sent him on his way. He was still just hanging around being a son, and she sent him on his way. He moved about 9 miles south. He crossed Ajo Way, which is terrifying. And He had on a special collar. We had special collars for the smaller cats, and they all had a mechanism that, what we call a breakaway, so the collar fell off at a particular time. But because he was still growing, we wanted another mechanism. So we cut the collar, put a little cotton insert in, and sewed it together so that if it got tight or started to bother him, if he scratched at it, it would come off. And that's exactly what happened. So what was funny about it was I found the collar sitting on top of a pile of dove feathers. So there was no doubt that he had a good meal before he took his collar off. So another thing that was really interesting, I mentioned we started on the west side. So our initial females that we captured in 2020 all had access to what I would say was good bobcat den habitat. So without a doubt, in all cases, if it was available to them, they went to the highest, nastiest, steepest place in their home range, and that's where they had their kittens. So this home range was this Bobcat Shannon, by the way, in this rock pile, and that's the higher view. This is over on Trail's Head. Bobcat Morgan, this is Dos Pico, which is over in the Gates Pats area. She spent almost no time there until she had a kitten. And we see where she had the kitten, and she had her kittens there every year. So sometimes they reused the dens and sometimes they didn't. And even Minnie, who lived on the golf course, we call this Minnie's Mountain now. Minnie went up and she had her kittens in a nice protected pile of rocks. She brought them down fairly quickly and kept them in this salt bush there. They could see the golf carts driving by all the time. So this is Morgan, who I mentioned up on Dos Picos. So you can see all of those locations. And this was an interesting strategy that Morgan used. This little female kitten, we actually caught this kitten, and Morgan was a little female, and she kept her there for 6 months. She kept her in that den site for 6 months, which was very unusual. Usually they came down in about 8 weeks or so, or 10 weeks. This is Bobcat Margaret, and Margaret lives on Tumamoc. So if you're familiar with Tumamoc, you can see the observatory there. I went to this den, or I tried to go to this den. And we found out very quickly that we could not visit the dens. She came out and ran away. She came right back as soon as we left. But it was in an incredibly steep, rugged spot. And Tumamoc is very hot and very dry. And Margaret had her kittens there every year, as did her daughter Elsie. And this particular reason I have this particular picture up is that one of the homeowners, so Margaret used a lot of the area, you can't see it in this picture, but she went to houses a lot. She was definitely a cat that used houses a lot. But this particular video of her, this was about 10 days after she had her kittens. And this was the first time she left the mountain. And I just think it's so hilarious. This is like Margaret's spa day. She was just really enjoying herself a lot. Just being able to be away from the kittens and being nice. They left water for her. She scratched her claws on the tree, and yeah. So I mentioned Avery earlier. This is Avery on the roof. She was over in that little incline. She kept the kittens there for 6 weeks. The homeowner did not know that they were there. The first 2 times, we knocked on the door, and we found out very quickly that if you go tell someone there's a bobcat on their roof, they spend a lot of time trying to see that bobcat on their roof, just human nature. As soon as she knew that we knew, that they knew she was there, she would move the kittens. She'd take the kittens and move them, and that's what she did. But I got an email, and he said I got up in the morning and there was this radio-collared female in my backyard with 2 kittens. So typically they hide the kittens for about the first 4 to 6 weeks, but then move the kittens as they become active to a secure nursery site. This picture, Chris Wesselman took this picture. It's one of my favorite pictures. She is a happy camper, clearly. So this is Chris's backyard. Thank you, Chris. And this is really typical for what makes up a good nursery, if you will, because she's gone 18, 20 hours out of her 24-hour day. She's hunting for herself. She's also hunting to feed the kittens. So they're by themselves most of the time. They can move around. You can see they can climb trees. And in fact, what seems to make a good nursery, first of all, a wall, a high wall. Now we found out that coyotes come over walls like that, which was very scary to all of us when we were watching Avery's kittens. Lots of vegetation, lots of places to snooze. They did all kinds of bad things to Chris's plants. Those are bad. But you notice the water Chris had out for them, bird feeder, and there's the kitten with his first dove. So this small mix, and anyone else here have kittens in their backyard? Anybody? Does this look a little bit familiar? Yeah. Yeah, these were things that were very consistent that we found. So this is Avery again, and Avery had her kittens, this would have been 2023, and she had them several doors down, and we knew she was out of house with kittens. We never tried to go to the house where they had the kittens hidden, because again, she was sneaking in and out. And if you have a female, if you start to see a female around, because unless they have kittens, they never go back to the same place over and over. Okay, they are busy butts. They're moving through their home range all the time. If you see a bobcat a couple days in a row, just act like you don't see her, because she's hidden as far as she's concerned. She had a kitten stash, and you saw this video earlier. It was in Zenji's, of her moving the kittens. They pick them up, they carry them in their mouth. Very scary time for all concerned. But she moved them over to Hans's house, and you saw in Zenji's video, she had them behind this water tank. And there she goes, carried a kitten. The neighbor thought she had a rabbit. She had a kitten that was on his doorbell. And so again, this is Hans's backyard, which you saw some of with her other video. These three little guys, she raised all three of these kittens. But again, you see the structure, you see the wall, lots of vegetation, lots of things for kittens to play with. They're very good at having fun, for sure. This is Bobcat to be this. So the one on the left is the one that got the radio collar. We took it off on the pile of dove feathers. But these were her 2022 kittens. The reason I have this picture up here again to just reinforce, we were able to, because Siobhan, is Siobhan here? Right? Oh, there she is. Okay, because she sent us in these pictures, I could put that check mark in my database that said Avery raised her kittens. Okay, so that truly was community-based, and we ended up catching these guys when we were trying to catch Avery. We did not catch Avery again, but we caught two kittens, and we ended up putting a radio collar on the one. So the other way that we, in some cases, some females we just never got pictures of, even though they lived near houses, we just simply didn't get pictures. And this was a den record. This was Bobcat Luna, and this was her second year that she was radio collared. So again, if you don't have kittens, your home range is just a series of dots. There are no clusters. Those clusters of dots are where she was coming back to the den over and over again. So you see how many times she moved the kittens. It's really common that they move them several times. What Morgan did when she kept hers up on those speakers, that wasn't the norm. But you can see that, and based on this, I knew, okay, to at least the middle of July, which is typically when the kittens start to travel with them more extensively, that she had raised her kittens. And just so happens that someone sent me in a picture at about that same time. And so this was Luna with her two kittens. One of the things that surprised me, and Zenji mentioned this in the video, was just how much weight and body condition they lost. So this picture was a Bobcat Margaret who lived up on Pima. And this was about 10 days before she had her kittens in 2021. This is in the Santa Cruz River drainage. This is the same location 8 weeks after she had her kittens. Look at the difference. It's amazing. They were absolutely skeletal by the time they raised their kittens. It is not an easy place to raise kittens. It's hot, and they work so hard. We were all humbled by the care and concern that they showed for their kittens. It is just remarkable. They are super good moms. I'm so grateful that they chose Avery chose Hans's backyard and Chris's backyard, because we were able to learn so much from the videos and from the photographs that we just don't get to see. We simply don't see this in a while. So this little kitten, I mentioned earlier, that was my favorite female. Are the Fedders here by chance? Barbara and Dennis? No. So they got a hold of us. They were very concerned. This was a storage thing in their backyard. And she brought this little kitten there. She didn't